What if your next conversation with someone you want to connect with ends like this?
Thank you so much, Stephen. It's been awesome being here.
First off, you must avoid the low-hanging fruit of questions. Ask yourself what questions the other person gets all the time and ignore those. Obviously, this becomes easy when you know something about the other person. That's why on his podcast, Nikhil Kamath tends to be well prepared.
Leading up to this, I watched all your interviews. I have watched a lot of your interviews, probably most of them.
Sorry.
Here's how you apply this in your life. If you're talking to a senior colleague or someone you've always looked up to, don't ask them questions they get all the time. Instead, read their LinkedIn, website, or their publications and ask questions about that. You will immediately separate yourself from everybody else if you do this, because most people show up to important conversations completely unprepared, and you will find that other people appreciate that kind of preparation. We see a great example of this on Diary of a CEO, where they bring out the doll their guest used to perform with.
And I would do these impressions about a troll doll and different impressions of celebrities that would be the host of the... like this one. Wow, you do your research.
If you're doing cold or warm outreach to reach out to somebody, start your message in a way that makes it obvious that you've done your research, instead of sending out a generic cold email. Then, once you're in conversation, ask questions that drive to emotional experiences.
Do you feel like in life you associate where you make the most money to your vocation?
Oh, that's a very good question.
Asking questions about emotional experiences is the best way to connect with someone because we all have similar emotional drives. But what if your mind goes completely blank in conversation and you can only think of basic, somewhat obvious questions? Use the good and bad structure to make any obvious questions a bit more interesting.
But what is one skill that is serving you well in politics that you picked up in business? And what is one thing that is not working out for you? Like what is working for you in India and what is not working for you in India?
In the past, I've talked about asking why questions.
So the ashram in India tells you that you can't give up your life. What happened then? And why did you specialize in psychiatry?
Now you will get asked what do you do in every conversation with a new person, and sometimes people might even ask why you do what you do, like you just saw. Before you answer that, think about what you want from an interaction. So if you want a professional relationship, talk about your job and add one sentence about your aspirations. Or if you want a personal or a romantic relationship, talk about your job but add one sentence about your values or hobbies. This will give the other person a little bit more information about you so you can keep the conversation going. If you want to learn these habits step by step, click the link in the description to join the waitlist for my upcoming program. Now at this point you will be in conversation, but maybe you run out of topics to talk about. To prevent that from happening, replace literal thinking with lateral thinking. Here's what I mean. If you literally treat conversation as a Q&A session, you will both get bored in 5 minutes. Instead, switch between topics by taking what they're saying and talking about what it makes you think of.
Very funny, but it became popular at that time called Just Chill. So
Just
that
Chill.
song was...
On the surface, this is a conversation about a song. But watch how he transitions from that to a story about himself.
You talking about your songs reminds me of something. I was in an acting institute. This was back in 2009, second half of 2009. And one of our exercises was to look into the camera and dance on Teri Aur.
Here's another example. For context, this is about why Nikhil posts on social media.
Is getting more distribution.
More distribution in what way?
If you think literally, you'd think this conversation is about social media. But watch how he transitions from social media influence to what he believes in.
The real answer is it gives you more influence over a wider sect of society.
And what do you want to do with that influence?
If I feel like something has to change in society, it gives me a good mouthpiece to say these contrarian things that maybe I think need to be said and other people are not saying it. I do get into trouble for saying it. And I constantly change my mind about everything. I go to the extent of thinking that authenticity itself is transient.
Now they can talk about his beliefs around authenticity if they choose to. That last part around choice is important because you have to give people choice on what to talk about. The way to do that is to catch paths of conversation. Watch the number of topics Dr. K lays out in this clip and see if you can catch them all.
Thing has happened where we've missed something about the mind and everyone is getting sicker. So like this was the problem that really attracted me. And this isn't about my desire. This is sort of where we introduce a concept of dharma or duty. So I recognize that I'm lucky. I'm this kid who got to spend 7 years studying to become a monk in India. So I travel back and forth, but I spent my summers there. So I had this really unique perspective. And then I got to train at Harvard Medical School.
If you were talking to him, you could have asked him about psychiatry, his travels to India, what dharma means to him, or his experience at medical school. The way you can catch these parts of conversations brings us to the next point, echoing. Most people will appreciate it if you listen to them. The simplest way to show that you're listening is to repeat their words back to them. This often invites people to open up and continue speaking. For context, here they're talking about how to help loved ones who are struggling.
I'm not saying that you can't encourage them, but let them take the lead. That's the big difference.
Let it be their motivation.
Let it be their motivation. And anytime they move in the right direction, you want to support that, but don't ever push them.
If that feels awkward, you can summarize what they said in your words. Here's Nikhil summarizing his conversation with the CEO of Netflix up to that point. Watch how Nikhil's summary invites the CEO of Netflix to continue speaking.
So you grew up, went to college, worked in the school newspaper, started working at a rental store, met Reed, started at Netflix.
Yeah, the guy is funny. When the rental store, my first job. So when I was going to school.
The final habit in today's video is to call out your commonalities. We all implicitly like people like us. This means when we share a similarity with someone, we are more likely to connect with them. Interestingly, these similarities can be both good or bad.
Because we are so constantly distracted by external things. So I don't know if you're like this, but I was in this point where I was idiotically efficient. So I would wake up in the morning and I would listen to a podcast while I'm like doing my exercise or whatever. And then even when I'm cooking, I'm listening to a lecture. And then like when I'm walking to the train, I have earbuds in and I'm listening to a lecture there.
When he said, I don't know if you're like this, that's basically a request for connection where he's sharing something about himself and asking Stephen if he's like that too.
I literally listen to the news in the shower.
Right? So we don't want to waste time.
So here's everything from today's video in one sentence. Ask non-obvious questions that drive to emotions. Think laterally, be an active listener, and share your similarities. But you need to balance listening with speaking. If you want to be a captivating speaker that leaves a lasting impression, watch this video.